Hey, Vertigo Nation, this is your host Sean back with another episode, and today I do have a guest, but before I introduce them, I just wanted to put a quick shout out to A Plus Concrete. They did some work for us here. Jason Sixberry and crew helped us out in a pinch, got a septic tank put in for us, and just wanted to give him a huge shout out because I'm telling you what, he did a fantastic job. If you're looking for any concrete work, outside work, you need to get in touch with Jason at A Plus Concrete. Yes, look him up on Facebook, and don't wait for that job to get done. Get a hold of him now. With that being said, we are back. I've got Ashley and Alex and Minna here. It's been a minute since I've had a full table, and it feels really good. As I told everybody, guests would be coming back, and I kept my promise. So Ashley's here, welcome back, and Alex is here, welcome back.
Thank you.
And Minna is here.
I am.
All right. So one of the things that Ashley and I were talking about just as we were getting ready to go live was how mental health and careers kind of are together, right? I mean, mental health impacts careers, careers impact mental health, and so it goes. And now that it's so awesome to have, guests and be able to have some conversation again, I'm just curious how that has impacted you, if at all, and, what have you learned through that experience and kind of where it's brought you, I guess.
Yeah, it's impacted me in every way, shape, or form. At the beginning of my healing journey, when I started to, if you listen to some of the other episodes, we talked about how I've been diagnosed with CPTSD recently.
Mm-hmm.
And for, I would say 2 to 3 years, we were chasing, diagnosis through Western medicine, whether it was, was it cardiac issues, was it pulmonary issues, was everything from, brain stems to hormonal. I mean, I've had every test under the sun. I think this year in claims alone, I'm at $50,000. So I can't imagine what I've done as far as insurance over the past 3 years. Shout out to my insurance company.
Right.
But it's been hard. And my last job, as far as being employed in the, I guess you could say, professional sector, was at a community healthcare center. I was head of basically the clerical side, so everything from receptions to medical record keeping to scheduling. I worked with them underneath me, and then I worked with the care team manager who managed the nurse and the providers and things like that. And was very excited about the job. It was very close to home, and community is what I'm about. I was so excited that I was able to use my previous experience, my previous college degree in business administration, to help our local community, to be there, to get this place where it needed to be. And I was there for a very short time before somatic symptoms started showing up, and I found myself physically ill. And they became my provider at the time. They ran tests. They eventually ended up taking me out of work because I was unable to make it through a whole day without some sort of symptoms showing up. And when I did return to work, they ended up letting me go.
So you're talking about physical symptoms, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like feeling physically sick, which I think is important real quick, because I think a lot of people don't always connect that there are physical symptoms that can be from depression, anxiety, mental health in general, right? Without naming.
And
but
I still hadn't yet.
Yeah,
I was having, they did EKGs on me that day, and they were so abnormal that they just deemed that all 5 of their machines were broken, instead of being like, maybe you need to go to the emergency department. I mean, I was going from a resting heart rate of, 80, 90 to I would stand up and we're shooting into 150, 160 within seconds. And instead of anybody looking at, okay, we need to figure out what's going on, let's maybe do some investigative work, it was machines are broken, she's missed too many days of work, let's just cut our strings. So even me at the time didn't understand that me not dealing with suppressed trauma could have affected that. I was still at the point of, I was chasing a physical diagnosis. Do I have some sort of genetic disease? Did COVID turn on some sort of autoimmune response? I'm going solely by, Western medicine rule book. Is you go to these doctors, you get referrals, you get the test, and hopefully something's out of range to where you're flagged. And most tests, I was right at the bottom of a range, but I was in range. So I was okay. It was do this, do that, take this medicine, eat more of this, but there was never a connection that something might be happening on the mental health side until I actually spoke to my gynecologist, which, as we know, is a doctor who specializes in women's, health care. And she was the first person that kind of, she didn't pry too much, but she was the first person that brought up, is there any sort of like mental health diagnoses in the family? Is there any sort of trauma? And at first I, took offense to it. I was like, why is a gynecologist telling me that maybe I should go see a counselor? But that was, her really opening a door to me being able to get to where I am now, which was I opened the door to some very traumatic experiences that I've never thought about, and I would say in a good 10, 15 years. And once I started seeing a therapist, I'm going on a year and a half of twice a week seeing a trauma-informed therapist, and it's changed my life. These physical symptoms are subsiding. I'm no longer spending 4 or 5 days a week traveling to doctor's offices, maxing out my insurance. And even with insurance, the copays stack up.
Yeah, that's true.
And they don't always cover everything. I mean, I'm to the point where I'm looking at due dates to see, okay, who can I pay today and who can I pay in a few days, so that way I can stay afloat and things don't start going to collections. And when you have things like PTSD or CPTSD, there's usually things that go along with that. And I unfortunately had agoraphobia show up, which is a fear of public, a fear of traveling, even a fear of being alone. So it wasn't even just being afraid to leave the house. It was afraid to literally have my spouse, the home provider at that time, leave the home. So he was taking off days of work to get me to these doctor's appointments, and then also taking off days of work because I would be so hypervigilant or in full panic attack mode that I was afraid to have him an hour and a half away because of the what ifs. Yeah. You get stuck in a cycle of rumination. What if something happens, and I don't have somebody there to help me? And, not that Western medicine doesn't help people, because if it wasn't for my gynecologist who opened that door, I may not be where I am today.
Sure.
But I've really built a bridge between Western and Eastern medicine, and using, different patterns of healing, whether it's acupuncture, massage therapy, yoga. I mean, these things that are looked at as, unfortunately, even demonic by some religions, because people think that they are, even though they have religious roots, we're talking thousands of years ago, people think because I go to a yoga studio that I'm worshiping a Hindu god. And I'm like, hi, I'm a survivor from a Christian-owned trauma business. Like,
it is weird.
It's just so strange.
I've heard a lot.
Trust me. And what's even crazier about that is when you are in the depths of the unknown of a health diagnosis, you will do anything to get some sort of answers. And I found he calls himself a holistic doctor down in New Hartford. The reviews were through the roof. This guy's helped me. He's changed my life. And of course doesn't take insurance. It's out of pocket. So I'm like, well, we have an HSA card. Let's see if I can use that.
Yeah.
First initial appointment was like $300 to talk to this guy, and never met him in person. And within 20 minutes, I'm told that I'm possessed by a demon.
Oh, is that what I see?
Yeah, it's just,
Alex is over here laughing. I'm trying. I'm like, what? What?
The funny part is, like, we had such high hopes for it, and like she was afraid to tell me that, like, the stuff he was saying, and we were supposed to go meet in person. She's like, we're not going.
Oh, I was embarrassed.
I'm like, why not?
Well,
she's
what do
like,
you even say to
yeah.
that?
And
Like,
she's like, well, he told me I was possessed by a demon, and I just bursted out laughing. I'm like,
yeah.
And my response was, if you took the time to know my story, I'm not possessed by a demon. I was born from a demon. Like, my parents.
But I couldn't even imagine
being
in your position, and like, because I've had some people say some off the wall shit to me, and I feel like I just blink at them. Like,
yeah,
did you really just say that?
Okay,
like, how do you even respond to that?
It's like, so what is my next call? Do I call, the diocese in Syracuse and say how much for,
an exorcism?
Right. Do I have somebody come down here and exercise? Like,
because I'm ready. Because I'm that desperate dealing with all of this that I will do whatever it takes.
Absolutely. And I'm probably the most anti-religious person. I believe in science. I believe, in nature, and I don't follow a religion. If people decide to do so, that's on them. But as far as you to say I have a demonic presence in me,
Yeah.
you're pushing your stuff on me. And I entertained the rest of the meeting, and what it was is he's one of those people that, sells these supplements. So now that we've paid $300 to get on a Zoom meeting, I need another $175 to send you this colon cleanse and this parasitic, remedy.
The demons in your colon.
And I'm like, right. And I could have went and got a $6 jug of Miralax and shit my brains out. I've had, a colonoscopy. I've done that whole thing.
It's not even funny, but it's funny.
And I literally, like he said, was afraid to say anything because I'm just like, what more can I hear from these people that literally are just taking people's money? Yeah. Saying that they're going to help, and people feed into this. It made me want to be religious at that moment in time because I'm like, okay, now what can I do? I got an answer.
And the funny part is we have the friend who's a doctor. He came over, and we were telling him about it, and he's like, I wanted to say something, but you got to be open for everything. He goes, and I know you guys been going through a lot, and I brought out the supplements, and he goes, yeah, don't even entertain taking those because
it's a pyramid scheme.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it's disgusting in a sense that healthcare is big business.
Oh.
And
100%.
that's a whole nother episode that I would love to do actually at some point. I don't want to necessarily go down that rabbit hole here, but it's just just absolute.
It just blows your mind, but at the
say.
same time, it doesn't because it's like as a scholar, my degree is in history, very history focused. So it's like the shit doesn't really surprise me anymore because it's like this stuff's been going on forever. I mean, they hunted cats because they thought they caused the plague. It was like, are you kidding me? Like, so, but it's just in 2025, this is what we're still doing. You're telling me that I have a demon, but you're giving me this charcoal pill, and that's going to get rid of the demon? I wanted to call the church just to see what they would say. Like, hey, this guy's saying charcoal is going to get rid of it. You guys are going to be out of a job soon.
I know.
Right. And charcoal's going to go through the roof.
That's right.
Yeah.
You're going to see bags of Kingsford flying off the shelf, man.
So after that, I really started taking a step away, and it's like, okay, if all of these diagnostic tests are saying that I'm okay, I've been in the emergency room for days on end, hours on end. I'm not dying, so to speak, right now. I said, so let's focus on living. Like, what can I do to turn the light back on to see my path? Because I've had all this shit happen to put the light out. We need to be a light. Like, it reminds me of that little anglerfish that was in the news that came up to the top, and they called her, this monster, and she was ugly. And I'm like, how dare you? Because this creature creates her own light in a place where there is no fucking light.
Yeah.
So how dare you say that little being swam all that way to see daylight? She was a light in the world. Like, she literally created light. Like,
remember, I was so obsessed with that story.
Oh, as soon as I heard it, I broke down.
This is like a 1 in a million shot, too. So Min tells me the story while we're at the laundromat one night, and they have the what are those? Squishmallows. They have the Squishmallow thing that you pay $3 in the claw.
Yep, the claw machine.
Right?
$3 was like $30.
I know. Well,
you suck.
That's normally how it goes.
By the time you're done. So doesn't she come over and she says, "Babe, there's an anglerfish in there," and I hadn't heard the story, so I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, you got to try to get it. So then you tell me the story, and I immediately looked it up, and you're right, though. And we got the anglerfish, by the way. But
$13 later.
Yeah, right, no, in all honesty, it was only 2 tries.
You're right.
It was. I got that.
It was still $13.
It's still 2 tries, $13. You're right. But no, and I remember reading that story and thinking, like, that is so incredible. And I mean, perspective on that. And so anyway, it's cool because I hadn't heard that story in a minute, but at the same time, it's a good reminder because that's a good
it is.
analogy,
but it's hard, though, because even, like, dealing with the stuff that I, with the MS stuff and the, I haven't even told you, I tested positive for Lyme just recently. And that's why I kind of shied away from podcasting because I sounded like I had laryngitis.
Yeah.
Ravaged my body. But anyway, you're in the midst of this. You're already scared. Your anxiety's through the roof. You don't have answers. It's not in the textbook. You can't explain it. When you do, they look at you like you have 3 heads. Then they tell you some off-the-wall shit like you have a demon.
Yeah.
I ended up in the hospital for 4 days going through neurology. I lost my eyesight. And they're like, well, you probably had a headache. I felt so stupid, and it's like you already feel like a nut job. You don't know how to explain it, and when you do explain it, they just talk to you like you're an asshole. And even, when I went to urgent care with the Lyme, finding that out, she's like, I really would like to send you to the hospital. I said, no, I don't want to go there and be talked to like an
and then
idiot.
have a huge bill to pay for, and
Yeah.
they're like, drink water.
Well, and then, so after my hospital stay, I went to my primary because I lost the vision in my right eye. A year later, it's still not back. But anyway, I sat with my primary and of 11 years, 9 years, something. I've had this guy long term. He looks at me and goes, maybe you just never could see out of your right eye and you just are noticing now. Talk about like,
Yeah, it's just it's so baffling.
excuse me, sir. So
Yeah,
this is
it's
where
so
it's
baffling.
like you're so desperate in your feelings. Like, do I just shut up and deal with it because it's easier? Do I continue to push forward? Do I kind of balance and say, you know what, I'm not really living, and try to find the positive? It's so hard. It's the mental part of that.
Like even the mental health side, like with everything she was going through, it's like, no, you don't want anything to be wrong with her, but at the same time, you want something to be wrong, so you have an idea of what
You can
what
do.
this
Where
is
you
and what
can
we
go.
can do and what
Yeah.
avenue we can take. And like I think that was probably one of the most frustrating parts is it was just a dead end and then another dead end
Yeah.
and then another dead end.
Yeah.
And I mean, a testament to her, just like she said, the work she's put in and everything like that. Like, me having to miss work and she's saying that. Like, last night I worked a 17-hour shift and she was perfectly fine being on her own and everything like that. And I mean, she's came incredibly far and in a short period of time. Like, yes, a year is long to some people, but like mental health, like a year is a long time.
I think, in fairness too, I think sometimes even a day,
Yeah.
right? Like it's tough to get through a day.
Oh yeah.
And I think, on both sides, I think as somebody who is watched, struggles with mental health, like, and feeling helpless and feeling like, there's nothing you can do. But then also when you go through it too, no matter what that experience is, that also feels like you're losing years in a day. So it's, time just moves at such a different rate. I think you're right.
And that's the thing too, like, even with everything she had going on, I had stuff going on too. Like, it was a lot to take in.
Yeah.
And that's when I decided the one day I was at work and I ended up calling one of my old bosses. I just like broke down. I'm like, I can't be here anymore. Like, I'm not here. And like in my industry, like, if you're not mentally there every day, you can get killed.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a safety
And
issue,
it's just, I had to take time off, and I had to take time off for her because we had to get her in the right direction. I think that was probably one of the best decisions I've ever made in my entire life, because she, I feel like, is every day improves and is better and better and better and better and better. And it's like, finally, like, we're getting somewhere, and it's just, it brings like so much joy to my heart. And like, even like her and our daughter the other night were in the room laughing and giggling at each other at 2 or 3 in the morning. I have to get up, and it's like, she's apologized. I'm like, you know how much happiness it brings to my heart that you guys can just sit there and laugh and giggle and
things
have
are
all this
finally falling into
Yeah,
place.
and
and
it's-
yeah.
It
Yeah,
was
and
fun.
it's,
that's so
and
cool.
it's
That's
like,
so cool.
even with like seeing a therapist, my insurance, like, I've had the best therapist I found, of course, is out of network. So I'm unemployed and I'm paying $160 a session just for that one therapist. I do see another one. There's co-pays with that. So I'm spending a car payment every week on treatment for something that, even though my medical, I have a medical diagnosis, but until you go through, the government and Social Security and they say you're disabled, you're not disabled. So I can say every day I'm disabled. I can be disabled. I am disabled. I can't drive far places. I used to have to, up until the past few months, I had to ride in the back seat laying down for us to travel because it was too overwhelming to go anywhere. So every doctor's appointment, he's driving and I'm laying in the back seat like driving Miss Daisy. And it was absolutely insane. And it's like, how is that not disabled? And it's because the government doesn't say that I'm disabled. And what's even worse is the government only recognizes PTSD, which is usually tied to one traumatic event. They do not recognize CPTSD, which is long-term exposure to extreme trauma. And I'm talking about I had 17 years of sustained trauma, both in the home, at the hands of my parents, and then institutionally. I experienced extreme trauma for 17 years, but that our government does not recognize that as a diagnosis. And we actually, when he took time off, I applied to see if we could get like food stamps or anything like that to help. And because I am not formally diagnosed or formally recognized through Social Security, I can't claim any of my medical expenses. So I'm literally spending thousands of dollars a month on a one-income household to try to heal from something that doesn't exist to my government. And I can't use any of these expenses to claim. Now, that's just mine. That's not the braces on my daughter's teeth. That's a whole nother car payment. That's not, everybody else's things. That's not him going to the doctors. It's not my routine stuff. That's just
Right.
therapy alone. And we can't claim any of that because the government says that I'm not disabled yet. The answer I got from them was to hire a disability lawyer and see how it goes. If I can't buy
Which
a bag of
requires
fucking
money.
groceries,
Yeah.
Right.
I can't afford a lawyer.
Right.
Like, it's
Yeah.
just so crazy that we are so dehumanized. And so I was like, I have no choice. I have to make money. Money rules the world. It's the currency of being able to do things you enjoy. It's the ability to get things that you need. It's the ability to get ahead. You can't do anything without money. I mean,
Right.
around here, we can do some bartering, like, oh, you grow corn and I have chicken eggs. Let's do some swaps.
Yep.
But as far as, like, some of the other things that I need financial means. And I had to literally create my own income. And
Quick question on a side note. I know that you were connecting with other, survivors of the teen abuse industry and all that. Has there been any type of forward movement in like lawsuits?
there
or,
is
like damages.
but when more recently there was I think it was like a $2 million lawsuit. But when you have thousands of claimants and then the lawyers have to get paid, I mean, you're coming up with maybe $5-6 grand for one person.
Yeah.
And through, thankfully, my treatment, even though it's expensive, a lot of us survivors are in and out of drug treatment facilities because of addiction issues.
Right.
They are in and out of the criminal justice system because of the risky behaviors that they've now involved themselves in. The homeless rate is through the roof, or they're not even with us anymore.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times a week I'm seeing people overdose, take their own lives. And so it's like when you do have $2 million, it sounds like a lot of money, but when it's divided between, 15 to 20,000 people, that's nothing. That's not even a semester at a community college.
I just wondered if it could be more like honed in local, like the state of Florida
Oh.
versus like as a whole, or even just the specific facilities that you went to
And that's the problem
kind
too.
of close that pool.
They're still happening.
So nobody
So,
sees anything wrong
when,
with it.
like Florida, for instance, the juvenile justice system and the school system and the troubled teen industry are all hand in hand. The school can send you without your parents' consent. Your parents can send you without anybody's consent. The cops can send you if they want to. I was literally taken by the police, and even though I was homeless and very truant, I was carrying a B or an A average, which is why they couldn't kick me out of school, was because my grades were still there. And the southern states are very that good old boy mentality.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still people, even my dad, one generation removed from me, who still believes that the South should have been able to win the Civil War and continue
Yeah.
to live life the way that they wanted to. And for that to still be in existence,
The mentality is
that's
Yeah.
there
Yeah,
are
it's
no
awful.
children's rights. There are no women's rights. We have specific roles, and as kids, your role is to be seen and not heard. And
Yeah, that's true.
I was a very outspoken child from the beginning, and that was a threat to the entire Southern society.
I have two things in that I was thinking about too. I think one of the things that I have noticed in kind of digging through this too is so you've got the southern mentality, which is very different than the north. There's definitely a separation there. I agree, especially in the Bible Belt. I think the other thing to think about too up here is they close their doors and reopen under different names so incredibly quickly. So, and that shuts down lawsuits a lot too.
Oh yeah.
True.
And the thing with the lawsuits too, like these people get money, and money can't buy you happiness. I mean, the damage is already done
Yeah.
at that point, and like you just said, they open up under a new name. So lawsuit against this one, well, they've already had one. This might be their third or fourth one, and that was, 20 years ago under that, and they're still rolling, and they're still making money off of it.
Yep. And they hide under the auspices of not-for-profit.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
Which means there is no regulation.
Yeah.
There is no oversight. So even though they work with the Department of Corrections or the Department of Education, they themselves have no oversight. So they do not have to have trained people there. They don't have to have anything. So it's like within the paperwork, your parents are literally signing over any and all liability of anything that happens. So even if you are able to get your documentation, I was there in the early 2000s, so mine's been burned in some campfire somewhere. But if you're able to get those documentations, your parents, or if you are a ward of the state, signed over the right for these people to do whatever they so chose to do. And that's a problem with some of these lawsuits too, is, they get down to the nitty gritty and they get into this paperwork and it's like, well, they signed you up for this. And constitutionally in the United States, children do not have rights.
Yeah.
We have no rights, no say so until we turn 18. And I mean, they do have, you have things like adoptions, which recently we went through, where children of a certain age have a point of view. It's deemed legally, so they can say whether or not they agree to it. But at the end of the day, that can even be shut down. That's just their opinion that's put on the record. That still, they can go above and beyond, because as a United States citizen, you're technically not a citizen of your own until you're 18 years old, which is very scary. I mean, you can get married in some states with your parents' consent, but you are still not constitutionally an adult in this country. So we have no rights as kids, and there's been some push to get, I guess, regulations put into place on these things to where you need to be, inspected by the Department of Health, or you have to have licensed counselors. But you have to have people that are in the mindset to be able to do that. And just me talking about things, just me watching, like, I really do believe my turning point was when I watched the program documentary.
Yeah.
And watching, and I'm not discrediting what those kids went through. Watching them go through a very PG-13 version of what I went through, it turned something on in my body that was like, you need to unpack this luggage because we have no more room. It was like that when you're getting ready for a trip and you're trying to sit on that suitcase and zip it up. I was sitting on my suitcase trying to zip it up, and my suitcase was not closing. And when I watched that, it gives you a tangible thing, like a connection to your memories. And I remember things now that I didn't remember before watching that documentary. And then when you hear it everywhere, it was everywhere for a year. And then you've got people like, Paris Hilton, that went through these same type of situations. But, she has more resources, so she can hire a legal team to fight this stuff for her. But when you as an individual are literally dick balls deep in this and talking about it nonstop, I mean, even I spoke about it at my college it was only like 15 minutes, and it was one of the most relieving experiences of my life, but it was also one of the hardest times of my life, because I'm literally telling people a secret that I'd carried for over a third of my life. There was so much shame and so much guilt, and the people that I considered friends or even family couldn't run away faster, because not only am I, telling people I was considered broken by my family, by law enforcement, by the state. I was called a bad kid. But now I'm telling them that I wasn't a bad kid, and I was tortured by these systems that control our every being, from law enforcement to education to healthcare. These systems that we all have to cooperate and play the game with are all guilty for child abuse. And it was a lot to take in, but putting the names to those things was like, okay, you were abused. You need to treat yourself like somebody that was abused and do some serious healing work.
Yeah.
And I've always kind of been, I guess you could say, anti-system, anti-broken system, because I do see the brokenness in the system. I am a result of broken systems. I see the holes that people are swept onto, into. I see the rugs that things are swept under. And it's been hard as an adult to try to fit in and now have to play well with these same systems that are still unchecked. These laws are still the same. There's nothing changed. And that's why I had to create kind of my own space. And that's why I created my own employment, which has always been kind of a side thing for me. I've always liked vintage stuff. I liked old things. But what the most important thing to me was the mending. You've got people that are resellers that, go out and try to find, a race car jacket from 1980s that, they're going to pay $10 for at Goodwill, and they know they can go on and eBay and throw it on there and auction it off for $300+. And I'm at, rural flea markets or digging in barns or getting calls from somebody's grandparents that died. And I'm finding pieces that if they do make it to the thrift store, they're sent to a landfill and then to the coast of Africa because they have a hole or they're missing a button or they're missing a zipper. And that's why we donate things, because they're flawed. And my experience has been more of a mender, an alterer, and I'm fixing things. And so something that's always been a hobby to me, I realized it was a tangible therapy. I'm taking these things that are physically broken, that have been discarded by people that owned them, and I'm bringing them back to life. And as I'm doing that, I've created an income source for myself, which isn't as much as he makes, but it's paying for these hundreds of dollars a week therapy. It's putting food in the fridge and the lights on when he was out of work. I mean, I just was online selling stuff for an hour before I got here. That's why I said I had to wait till 3, because I literally go online and show myself again. And that took a lot.
As a business.
I mean, you've got imposter syndrome that shows up.
Yeah,
you've got somebody that is, I carry myself like I'm the most confident person in the world, but I'm a brick of Swiss cheese, man. Like, there's still lots of holes to be filled. And to be able to accept that I am just as deserving, Swiss cheese is just as deserving as that block of Gouda. It's just a different flavor. You might mix it with a different meat, you know what I mean? But it's still right. It's still deserving. It still deserves to take up space on the shelf, and that's what I've done. I have made sure that I've created room on the shelf for myself, and I'm taking it up. And I recognize that there's holes to fill, and I'm filling those holes myself. I'm becoming the parent that I didn't have, and not only am I doing it for my child, but I'm becoming my own parent that I didn't have. As I'm parenting, I'm learning how to be what I never had. Yep. I'm becoming a friend that I don't have anymore because they left me because I admitted that I was broken and I had things to fix. And for whatever reason, they ran to the hills. And it's almost like when you recognize your faults or your quote-unquote, people call them demons, right. And when you look at them as parts of yourself and you sit down and you have conversations and you delegate, this is your job at happiness. This is your job, joy. This is your job, anger. Just like that movie Inside Out. Nobody's better, nobody's worse. They're all parts of who you are, and they all have a job. And if you don't let anger do its job, if you don't let grief do its job, that task list is going to build up. Right. And that's what happened to me. Anger and grief and sadness were like, listen, man, we got to work overtime because we have a lot of shit to do because you didn't let us do it. And now, there's a payroll system. So I had to let, grief and anger work a little bit more than joy for a while because you only have so much to give. Yep. And it's exhausting. Mental health healing, I feel like I'm a bodybuilder. Like, there's literally days, like, after therapy where I have to just, if I sleep until noon or 1 o'clock, I'm sleeping because that's what my body needs. Like, and it's just, and that's another system that you have to fight against because it's like, oh, why are you sleeping until noon? You're lazy. Because
those societal expectations of what you
like,
should and shouldn't be doing.
Because I was up until 3 o'clock in the morning working through my trauma survival journal and having flashbacks of battles that you guys don't consider battles because the government says so.
Well, and we had talked about this too because, you know, there was a time frame where I would just wake up between 2:30 and 3 o'clock every morning just pissed about nothing I could do anything about. And I would just stew, and I'd have to process it, and I would just get amped up, and it's like, then I wouldn't want to, and it tailors your whole day.
Yeah,
it
you know you need sleep. Like, you have to, whether you fall asleep at 4 a.m. or 8 o'clock at night, you need that amount of sleep, and I've had to just get rid of that societal thing of, you got to go to bed at 8 and get up at 6. It's like, no, you need the 7 to 8 hours of sleep. That's the number you need to focus on. Not the time. I mean, there's people that work third shift and they don't get shamed. Mm-hmm. But if you don't have that shift and that payroll thing that says you work third shift, well, your ass better be in bed at 8 and up by a certain time. And I've been called lazy and the names that have been called and the way that I've been treated. And it's like, I'm working harder than I worked when I had 3 jobs.
Yeah.
And I've worked in production. If you've worked any sort of production job and I was salary, you're usually working 60, 70, 80 hours a week on a production floor in a hot-ass building. And it was beer. And let me tell you, beer only smells good when it's finished and it's cold. The process, the cleanup, the aftermath is absolutely disgusting.
I can't do it.
I used to homebrew.
Oh, it's a lot.
Yeah, and you are right. The smell of well, I guess some of the greens can smell all right. But yeah, the cleanup,
it's just,
I can't remember what podcast it was on that you were talking about. You used to, like a previous one, used to homebrew and stuff like that. I was like, I can definitely see that he had his hand in that.
Yeah.
But then it was so stupid because he'd be like, "Oh, honey, you got to try this apricot beer," and I'm like, I need to let you in on a little secret. The smell of beer, I'll lose it.
Yeah.
Because I thought I was a cool guy once when I was like 18, 17 or whatever. And funneled a whole bunch of beer really quick. I can't even.
That'll do it.
No. Oh yeah.
I'll have one.
I have multiple, but beer. He's like, "Oh, honey, the apricot," and I'm like, "I can't."
I can't
But anyway,
I can't do Coors Light. Coors Light's the one for me.
I can't even. Big Red Gum. I can't even chew. I can't even smell cinnamon from when Fireball first came out.
or Aftershock.
21st birthday. Just
Aftershock.
See how much
Goldschlager. Forget it.
Coming out. It's
But I couldn't imagine being immersed in it. No,
It was a lot. And not to mention, you're mixing that smell with 100 production workers in a 90-degree factory. And then you got the truck drivers coming in and out. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And we're in a building that was built in the early 1800s. There's no ventilation. It's all brick and cement. And it's just... And I've never worked harder than I do now. I mean, hell, one of my jobs during having 3 jobs, I used to put up party tents. So these big, huge canvas tents that people do for weddings and graduations, I'm talking about big tents, like 100-foot by 40-foot tents. Like, I would be the only woman on these crews, and I'm 120 pounds soaking wet with clothes on a good day. And I'm working right alongside them. And let me tell you, that was hard-ass work. I mean,
I can imagine.
You're in the sun after you had to drill through bedrock to make sure you can post these tents down. Now you have to put them up, and I can tell you, therapy, way harder.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it is crazy.
But I've made, I've been dealing with, I even was talking to clients about it the other day. I've mentioned it to you, and I've talked to David about it. There's days that I'm back-to-back swamped 6, 7, massages. And I'm talking big, burly dudes that want deep tissue. And I am more tired if I have a mentally hard day where I have stressors or like the shit hits the fan or like I'm dealing with something mentally. I'd rather run a marathon with my fat ass because it's like the mental load takes a worse toll on my body. And there's days that I'll come home after a full schedule and I'll be fine. There's days that I'll have 2 massages and I've had something stressful happen and my body shuts down at home and I'm worthless for the rest of the night.
Yeah.
I will take physical over mental any day.
And it's that mind-body connection. Like I just read, I've done tons of research over the past few years. A, trying to figure out what the hell's going on, and B, to understand how to get out of it. And there's literal studies that have proven your body can't tell the difference between physical and mental stress, physical and mental pain. So you've got these people that are on, which I know, antidepressants and mood stabilizers and things like that do help some people, but you can literally take a Tylenol on a hard emotional day, and your body can do almost the same type of thing with that pain reception as it will with some of these other things. And it's because your body doesn't know the difference. Pain is pain. Stress is stress. And so, when people are still not recognizing that this thing on our shoulders that controls everything below is just as important as everything below it.
Your nervous system is just incredible. I think that people underestimate.
And it's like, and unfortunately, as much as I love our small community, we still are very conservative. And if you've got something, if you see a therapist, you are the craziest piece of shit known to man.
It's true.
And there's so many reasons to see it. I think therapy should be required.
But you know what's weird? I feel like I should be certified in some kind of therapy because as a service provider, I get so many clients that come and dump on me.
Oh, yeah.
And they're my therapy as well. You know what I mean? So why is it like, poo-pooed when we go sit on a couch and talk to somebody when you can go get your hair cut and dump?
Exactly.
You go get your nails done and you're dumping on somebody. You come get a massage and we're chatting back and forth. You know what I mean? But why are you crazy if you pay a therapist?
Right.
It's weird.
Or
it's same thing like at work for me. Like I've had a couple of guys I've worked with, and it's like we sit there and like our therapy back and forth to each other. Like sit there and bitch and complain about this is going on, or
which is
talk
awesome.
about the other stuff, and then it's like even we've talked about before with men's mental health, like.
But
then if you went and told your pals,
I
I got to leave early tonight because I got to go to counseling, they're gonna be like, all right, dude.
Is everything okay?
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
dude.
as soon as it's
you get the weird side eye.
As soon as it's a therapist or any sort of licensed person, it's
crazy how society does that.
What if there is something wrong? It's like my mental health is just as important as that knee that you've had fixed 4 times. And let's talk about the fact that you probably went and played softball after the first surgery and you re-messed it up. Right. I didn't cause my problem. So it's like, who really is, it's...
Yeah.
And it's just the stigma behind it. It's like the brain is a part of your body.
Yeah. It's sad.
Why don't we celebrate? Why do we criticize?
Yeah.
Why aren't we celebrating? Oh, good for you, dude. Yeah, get out of here early. Go do your...
Right.
Go do your thing.
It shows, like, how far we still have to go to get away from these stigmas. Because it was like, my mom, who is fighting addiction and probably will always fight addiction her entire life, could have been helped and saved through mental health. Mm-hmm. She had a sibling die at 6 years old from polio, the first child in upstate New York who died from polio. They took their house and burned it to the ground because they thought it was still contagious. That alone, and that's not the first and only thing that this woman went through. And she has been in and out, of, criminal justice systems to quote-unquote recovery centers. But again, we go to privately owned things that serve a purpose of making a profit. So I've lost a parent to the stigmatization of you just don't talk about stuff.
Yep.
And we have these people that, oh, my parents have been married for 45 years. Are they happy? Or are they staying married, just to stay married because they don't want to be talked about by every Dick and Harry on Facebook?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
so true.
It's just so crazy to me how it's like, I was embarrassed to even talk about being divorced when I was younger because it's almost like we have a Carfax, oh my God, my next guy that I date, I'm going to have to pull my Carfax and show him that I've been in an accident.
Yeah, my life facts.
Right.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you when I was younger how many people, as soon as I told them I was divorced at 20 years old or I had a child, it was like, you would have thought I was full-blown plague and I had a plague doctor chasing me down trying to put me down.
Yeah, that red letter.
Yeah.
That scarlet letter.
It's just like, no, that meant I recognized a bad situation and I left it to be a better person.
But it's not celebrated. It's like, you get that squinty face like, well, A, why were you married? And B, why
Yeah.
did you, it's like, none of that matters. The fact is, I recognized I was in an unhealthy situation and I got out of it. Why can't it be that?
Yeah.
Why does it have to be the other shit,
And like, even like, it's, I consider myself 100,000% self-employed, and people still do not take it serious. I'm called a thrifter. I'm like, it's a hobby. It's, how is your sewing going? How's my sewing going? I need to go to the chiropractor because I was bent over a machine working on a dress for the last 3 weeks. That's going to be on a TV show on Netflix. That's how my sewing's going.
Yeah.
And it's not, it's not.
So wait,
like,
hold, pause. You
condescending.
can't throw something out there like that and then not elaborate. So you got one of your pieces is going to be in Netflix.
Oh, I've had several. I mean, we go to which unfortunately I didn't go to this past market. It's one down towards it's Johnstown. It's getting towards downstate, and it's an all vintage market. It's called the Vintage Bop. Shout out to Jess at the McLemmons in Johnstown, because she puts together this incredible true vintage. We're talking stuff back to Edwardian Victorian pieces. And you've got a lot of people that come up from Hudson, New York City, that shop. They are stylists. They're doing curations for movies, for shows. I mean, these are big time, buying people. And I've had people, I can't tell you how many, that have reached out to me after that, and they've continued to buy pieces, saying, hey, I have a client, this is the type of thing I'm looking for. And I have one who I'm sending at least a box a month towards things that are going to be in, period shows, movies, documentaries. And it's like, this isn't a hobby.
Right.
I mean, where do you think, you think all the stuff from the Titanic movie, they pulled that up from the ship?
Yeah, right. Well,
No.
they could have. Like,
Yeah,
no.
it's right. It's people like me that are, going to estate sales, that are digging for things, that are bringing these things back to life to look like it's from the 1910s.
That's incredible.
But
that's incredible. And so, all right, so let's back up a minute, because I think talking about the mental health stuff is huge, and I know that we connected that to mending and taking the vintage clothing and then turning that into something that is beautiful and then kind of repurposed and back out there. Like, that's been therapy and
giving
doing
it another
that, right?
life.
But let's talk specifically for a minute, because this is kind of cool too, and kind of shows, I think, that journey. So let's talk about a little bit. So I think people get the gist that it's vintage clothing, but it sounds, in my mind, when I think of vintage clothing, I think of like 70s bell bottoms. It sounds like to me that you're finding timepieces that are even older.
Oh, 1800s. I have
that's
a
incredible.
couple pieces.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about how you got involved in that.
I have a couple pieces that are even from, American Revolution. I actually have a button collection. And
he doesn't know this stuff because he won't go on social media, and I get to see everything. So you lose.
All right.
You miss out.
Some
It's
of
I know,
it.
awesome
I'm
stuff.
so bland.
It's not a bad. There's some stuff like we watch these movies and these kids say these words in there, and I'm like, is that a real thing? She's like, yeah. I'm like, there's no way.
Yeah.
That's a real thing.
Yeah.
And, like,
But he misses all the good stuff, because like seeing her stuff is phenomenal.
And to even touch on like
I got to be better. I
her,
do got to be better about
her
that.
business there, like that she has, like, so after she got let go from the company, I was just like, just do something that you enjoy doing. And I knew that she did that, and she was doing that stuff, and she kind of ramped it up a little bit more. And I will be the first to admit, I wasn't a really huge non-believer, and I was a non-believer in it at first. And we went to that Vintage Bop thing, and it was the coolest thing I've ever been to. And it's like, this is like crazy that people do. I had never known about it.
Yeah.
And like after we get in the truck, she goes, now do you believe me? I'm like, oh yeah. And I had a blast. I have so much fun when we go to it. And it's like, we're there for, what is that, like 8 hours? And it feels like you're there for 10 minutes. It's just all the stuff, and you walk around and you can see all this old stuff. It's crazy.
And it's like time traveling.
Yeah.
And
That's so cool.
my new degree, the most recent one that I got was in childhood education, and you have to pick a concentration, and I picked history. And because of not being able to drive and stuff like that, I kind of had to pivot for my next my undergrad, so I picked history. History's always been, I've always kind of did a deep dive into history as a way to escape my situation. I've been reading historical books since I could read. I mean, we're reading about Holocaust books when we're 6, 7, 8 years old. I'm reading about, the Trail of Tears way before I was heard about it in school. And I'd always gravitated towards, minorities, people that have been discriminated against, people of oppression, people that have literally been, held under a foot, so to speak, but have survived culturally and somehow, kept their semblance of who they were, even though everything was fighting against them. And when I started doing, vintage clothes, it's like it goes back to having that tangible way of connecting to those time periods. And another thing that I'm able to do is I've done a lot of restorative work for local play groups, like Oswego Players Club. They actually lend a bunch of stuff to our local high school during their drama club, and they did Little Women. They've done a play about the USO. I mean, they've done all sorts of historical time periods, and they've trusted me to take in these, delicate pieces. We're talking 120-year-old cotton. We're talking 100-year-old silk and things that need to be restored. And they know that I have, the knowledge and the wherewithal to fix these things, not just to fix them, but to fix them as they would have been done during that time period. So, I mean, I've got needles and thread that are 150, 200 years old because that's what would have been used on that particular garment, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to send a 200-year-old dress through my sewing machine. A, I don't want it to get stuck, and B, that's not how it would have been done. Mm-hmm. And now that I'm thinking back about where this spark started, when a lot of this traumatic stuff was going on at home when I was younger, my 3rd grade teacher bought an old cannery building in Florida. And the idea behind it was to start, it was all children ran. It was the 3rd and 4th graders. They kind of just, watched over us. They did the money side of things. But we ran it all, and we did what was called a living history museum. And it was a nod to old Florida. It was the cracker lifestyle. So the poor farming families, the sharecroppers that would bring their stuff in to get canned because they couldn't afford to do it at home. I have worked, I was actually taught how to spin yarn by a Seminole elder. I mean, we would have people come up from the Seminole tribe in the Everglades, and she literally taught me how to use a spinning wheel and take just, wool in its raw form, spin it into yarn, and we would sell these things at markets that would go back into the museum and let us do our things. And I'd always kind of carried that history and the use of textiles, because there's more meaning than just a shirt on Amazon for so many cultures. I mean, you look at what's going on in the Middle East, the embroidery on their clothes, you can tell where they're from in their country by the flowers and the patterns that are embroidered into what they wear. And it's just had so much more of a meaning to me than just, like I said, finding pieces and reselling it for a profit. I'm probably one of the most reasonable people as far as pricing you will find, because I'm not just trying to make money. I'm creating a living history.
Yeah,
I'm
incredible. I didn't know that.
I'm literally fixing something that's going to be in a movie to educate somebody, or that's going to be in a play and let these kids step back in time and get, connect to how things were. And it's kept me distracted when I was younger, but at the same time it was letting me build something within me that I'm using now.
But do you ever stop and think about the therapeutic parallels?
Oh, 100%.
You're taking this discarded item, which
you
very much felt
We're
discarded.
a discarded item. Yeah.
And you're repurposing, or you're fixing, or you're educating, and it's like you're building these textiles and these pieces just as you are rebuilding yourself.
Oh yeah,
it's such an interesting parallel.
It's so healing. And I mean, even using the sewing machine and the sound of it and learning, other than the things I learned at the Living History Museum, which is very crude. I mean, like I said, we're talking about the spinning of yarn and things like that, but other than that, I'm self-taught. I'm taking things apart to learn how they go back together, and that's what I'm doing to myself.
Yeah.
I've I fell apart. You know, it wasn't necessarily by choice, but I definitely fell apart.
Yeah.
And I'm putting myself back together. And I'm feeling and I'm seeing that within myself. I mean, obviously, I mean, just working with you guys, I've put on 20 pounds since this whole thing. And that's a fifth of who I am.
Yeah.
That's a big
That's
difference.
incredible.
That's the difference between, you know, me looking now and I looked sick because I was sick. And there was people that said, "Oh, you look fine." The hell do you mean? I'm 90 pounds. And, you know, it's, so yeah, I could see and feel it within myself, but
Yeah.
when you can use your hands that were told that were useless and nobody wanted to take something that was, I mean, I have found pants that I thought were black, and after cleaning them, were like a bright orange. Like, it's, I'm literally breathing things back to life. And not only are they not just discarded and garbage anymore, but now somebody else is going to go enjoy
That
this.
energy and passion, though,
Oh,
that's coming behind you.
huge.
Yeah, I mean, I highly doubt that you'd be able to do any of that if you didn't have the trauma
Oh yeah,
igniting that passion
and I can see
putting
the
that energy
difference.
into it.
I mean, there's tons of people out there that are resellers, which sell like more modern stuff. They'll call 90s vintage stuff. I guess to some people it's vintage. But there's so many shops that resell secondhand items, and you know, to try to make a profit. Which kudos to them. We all need to make money. But it seems to me like they're more worried about like the aesthetic, and they have to look a certain way. And my aesthetic is transparency, truth, authenticity. I mean, I can't preach that enough. I mean, my page might not look like I paid somebody to set it up and look, you know, all calm, cool, and collected, but my page looks like me. My page looks very patchwork. It looks very historical. I mean, hell, I share so much history on my things. Like for Pride Month, for example, I did a collection of T-shirts that came from, they were all shirts from the 80s I've collected over the past few years, and I finally had a handful of them. And they're from a resort. It's called Fire Island out on the New York coast. Huge in the LGBTQ plus community. Okay. And I put this collection together. I was so damn proud of it. And before I do these collections, I'll give the history. I'll come up, I'll do some research. I'll come up with a post. I'll find pictures and say, here's some context.
So there's a huge education
right,
piece.
Behind this shirt that I'm about to show you. It's not just a shirt. This is a means to resistance. And like when I leave here today's the anniversary of the Stonewall riots, another huge thing in the LGBTQ plus community. And I'm going to go home, put a post on there about that, and explain why I'm selling my rainbow crochet bags tomorrow to come up with money to donate to it's called the Q Center. They're local to Central in upstate New York, and they help youth. It's mainly, I think they go up to age 26, they have some groups for. But every month, I'm raising money, not just for myself. I'm raising money towards, like, this month's all been going to LGBTQ plus communities. During Women's Month, I was donating to Planned Parenthood. Black History Month, I sent a few $100s to a bookstore in California that shut down during the wildfires and was basically a resource hub for people. So it's not only am I fixing items, but I'm being able to, without a real job, you know, people say it's not a real job.
Right.
I just shared a post the other day. In 6 months from my little community of, I think I have 1,600 followers as of today, I've given over $1,000 to different things, in which it may not seem like a lot, but you know, $200 is a trip to the grocery store.
Yeah, it is
you know,
a lot.
$50 for, you know, a youth center. That's a lot of snacks for kids that might not have food at home. And if I'm just one person in this town of 1,000 people, imagine if other people did this.
Yeah.
So if you think about what you just said, I'm going to use your own analogy. So $1,000 and then 1,000 people, which, right? There's $1 a person. That's a lot when you think about that.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You're talking about, you know, I mean, yeah, that's incredible. And I love hearing about the passion behind it. And then I can also see that fire ignite that Min was talking about with, like, yeah, look at all of this energy that is being, you know, put into, and that's a healing journey in and of itself. I think it's incredible. I have to ask a strange question, I guess. Strange in the
Give it to me.
Well, strange in the sense of, we're talking about mental health and we're talking about this healing journey, and my question is this: what's the oldest piece that you've done any type of work, restoration, or whatnot to? What do you think the oldest piece is?
The oldest piece, I probably will never let go of this. It's dated. I believe it to be from the 1690s. And it's kind of like, I guess you would call it cheesecloth now, but cheesecloth now is really thin. It's more to filter. It's kind of like if you've seen like the beeswax wraps that people use now to like kind of like it's like a renewable plastic wrap you can store food in.
Mm-hmm.
It's what they would have stored food in. It could have been salted meat. It could have been vegetables in the winter, because they didn't have mason jars and things like that. It was still a lot of cloth. So I don't think I will ever let go of that piece. I don't use it. It's just kind of in my stash of just to remind me, this literally was touched by hands almost 400 years ago. But I have a piece that was from 1850s that I just restored, and I plan on wearing it. It's a shirt.
Yeah, that's so
and
cool.
I have just from the flea market down the road, which it blew my mind. I've been looking for one of these forever. It's called a petticoat. It would have been like a cotton skirt they wore under their dresses. And people sell these torn up, rust holes, moth holes for hundreds of dollars online. And I'm very humble. If it's more than $20, if it costs more than $20 for myself, I'm not buying it, because I can get something for my kid.
You're like that too.
I'm just like, nope, I'll wait. And I almost bought one on the Mercari app. It's like a reselling app. And I almost bought one. There was one for $60, but every time I buy something for myself online, it's not as described. I'll get it and it's trash. So I was like, no, I'm just going to wait. And it was like the hottest day last summer. It was like 95 degrees outside. So it had to have been over 100 inside that flea market down the road. And I went in and they had one for $18.
No kidding.
And inside the waistband, it was a ribbon inside the waistband. And it must have gone through like sisters as they got older and changed. And there was initials. Every time the skirt was let in or let out, there was initials marked inside of it. Wow. And I paid $15 for it.
There's been so many times, like, she gets stuff. I'm like, just get it. Please just get it.
Yeah, I know.
Because
you're
going to sit there and kick yourself if you don't get it. And, like, even just to talk about her pieces, like, stuff that she gets and she sells to people and everything like that, those people are so lucky to see it in the condition that they receive it in, because the condition that she gets it in, some of them are disgusting.
Most people would throw it out. Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I've seen water that is as dark as night.
Yeah, microphone.
It's disgusting. And then you watch what color it was when it came in and what color it actually is. It's like, how is that even possible? Like, she had pants that were, what were they?
Early 60s.
Those
bell
brown
bottoms,
pants that ended up being...
like a plaid corduroy color.
Yeah.
And I thought they were dark chocolate brown.
Yeah. And, like,
That's gross.
I can't tell you how many times I get home from work and I just want to shower, open the shower curtain, and there's just a bin of clothes that are soaking in there. And I'm just like...
And it is gross, it's... But if you think about it, it's just decades or centuries of the same shit that's on our sheets. Dust and sweat.
Yeah. That's the thing that I think...
Those skin cells are so old, they're... Good luck pulling
They could
DNA.
be
My
driving.
sheets are worse than
it's
this
crazy
stuff.
to me.
But as an energy worker too, like for me, my thoughts are like the residual energy that these things, because we thrift a lot here for our decor. Created this space and our home is a lot of antique and junk and whatever, just cool eclectic crap.
It's fun.
Yeah, but we sage it to cleanse and to remove those energies because we feel we believe in residual energy. So I can't believe you know, what some of this energy, because you're on clothes close to your
Yeah.
body, like
Yeah.
it's
So
That's
not
what
like
I was
somebody's
thinking
armoire.
about.
Yeah, so
That's
it's
what
like
I-
imagine who wore that, or like
That's
when
what I
I
was
find
thinking, too.
What
I
if
have a
somebody-
mirror from the late 1800s, and I believe in the same thing. Stuff
Yeah.
holds energy.
Yes.
But when you think of some of these things and the fact that they've survived and they're intact 170
it's
something years
incredible.
later, somebody loved that mirror.
Yeah.
And they took care of that. For that to be fully intact in, pristine condition, it's like somebody cherished that over the
Yeah.
years. And it's like some of this stuff is just like, I wish it's a way of time traveling and connecting
Yeah.
to, and it's like, it reminds you that you can have things that mean a lot to you. Like, yes, some stuff is just stuff, but the people that came before us had so much less. I mean,
Yes.
if you were well off, you still only had a few, outfits. You had your dinner dress, you had your work dress.
Things
you
were
had
more
your...
sentimental.
Exactly.
Yeah, that too.
Hand downs and like heirloom stuff and family pieces and
Yeah. And now
Yeah,
it's
we
now
don't
we
really,
throw out
there's
stuff.
no appreciation for that stuff anymore. Sorry,
No.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. But
no, it's
and-
you can just go on Amazon and get whatever and wear it to one event, and then it's at the thrift store.
Yeah.
And that's like how many times you see like a house and it's got a dumpster in front of it, and it's filled to the brim because somebody's grandmother or somebody's parents have died, and it means nothing to them, so they're just all gonna throw it out. And there's so many cool things like in
Yeah,
those
I know.
houses. Like when my grandmother died,
They wanted
she
to
was
just,
going through
yeah.
there, and they wanted to just throw everything out, and she's like, "Just let me
I
kind of go
stopped
look."
them, and this woman spent like decades. When I tell you traveling the world, I'm talking about Nepal to Egypt to South America. I mean, this woman had stuff, handmade artisanal stuff from the entire
That's incredible.
globe. I mean, I had enough postcards from her collection to I was putting one in every order for the first 3 years of doing business. And I drop off, I mean, the post office used to get sick of me because I drop off sometimes, 2-3 dozen packages at a time. But they're all ready to go, already labeled. They just have to scan them and put them in the back. But I had postcards from all over the entire world, just those alone, from the 50s to the 80s. I mean,
Yeah, that's incredible.
I had book bags from, Peru, handmade from leather. Somebody worked all day to make that damn book bag that she probably paid $20 for, and they wanted to just throw it away.
We
And
did
I'm
that at my
like-
grandpa's house.
And I was just like, no, like, please don't, like.
Yeah.
When I started digging, I was like, this stuff that you guys think is junk, like, I've replaced, like, the Russian nesting dolls.
Yeah.
Motherland. But she had tons of them. She had ones from Poland. She had ones from Czech Republic.
And they're not made now like they were back
Exactly.
there.
No,
Everything's
that's the
hand
thing.
painted and
These are
handcrafted
signed from
and
the
Yeah.
hand
artists and everything,
Yeah,
and they were
yeah.
in pristine condition. And I can't tell you how many heirlooms I can't replace the exact heirloom that somebody's lost or broken or lost in a divorce, but I can't tell you how many pieces I've sold to people that it reminded them of their grandma, or their grandma had
Yeah.
this, or I had this toy when I was younger, and
I haven't seen it since I was
Right.
a kid. And
I'm
I
replacing
have
joy.
I have an idea.
Oh,
I think
boy.
this is going to be great. No. So as I'm listening, I'm just thinking, like how often and how one of the things that we love that we haven't gotten to do actually in the past couple of summers is we would travel anywhere, pick a direction in New York State, travel within a few hours, and go to quote unquote junk shops, antiquity, whatever, right? Flea markets, anything that sells trinket and also historical stuff, that right. But I'm just thinking, we got to do an antique roadshow style Vertigo podcast where we all just
Yeah.
hop in the car.
yeah, because could you
Bring
imagine
the,
like
we can
you-
record live
Yeah.
and we go on the road
like
and
you
we
wonder
see
like what
we
would
find,
you look
man.
for versus
Yeah.
we already know what you would look
Yeah,
for.
yeah.
Me, I'm not educated. I can't look
I
at a
know.
piece and be like, that's a
I wish.
1950s, credenza.
Right.
I look at it like, that's cool. That's got good energy. I need to have it. Like
Yeah.
Yup.
to think like what you would kind of eyeball, like old baseball,
Baseball, yeah.
cards,
Yeah.
or
Baseball cards.
Is that it?
Oh yeah,
That's a
good
I
guess.
love baseball cards.
All
She
right.
gets mad at me because there's a
That would be
Whatnot
so
app or whatever it is there, and there was times like I would get like every day a package coming from there. Let me guess, more baseball cards.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
great. I too, I was just thinking, I wish I had all of the baseball cards that I had collected as a kid.
Mhm.
I was huge into baseball cards. I love baseball. I still love baseball. I don't get to watch it much anymore, but that's just because the season's so damn long,
Yeah.
and that's a whole nother discussion too. But I used to love, and I had binders because my OCD, ADHD brain, whatever day it was, I had binders with all the teams by year, players.
Well,
I had, and
stopped
I think
over-
about that now, and it's like, holy shit.
We stopped over to my parents, and my mom hands me this binder, and it's got, like, my favorite football team is New Orleans Saints.
Oh,
The
yeah.
whole thing's full with New Orleans Saints players.
Yeah.
And, like, so I always collected cards when I was younger, and then I kind of stopped. And after my grandmother died, we were just going through the house. I happened to open something up. I see all these ammo cases, and I'm like, what the heck are in here? Open them up, and they're all baseball
Oh,
cards.
wow.
So, like, I went through every single one of them, and that kind of got my, I guess you could say, addiction started.
Yeah,
back
so
to
it
again.
sounds like what we need to do is when we say pick a direction, we literally just play left, right in the car. But it sounds like what we need to do is head towards Cooperstown.
Yeah. Even there is and when we went to
it's such a
Cooperstown, we
little
kinda
town,
got,
and
like-
it's great for like this junk diving kind of
Yeah.
stuff that
Yeah.
I call it. Like
Or the Thousand Islands.
You
There's
know.
some really good stuff up there because those people
Ooh,
inherit those
yeah.
houses and those
That's
castles and
true.
mansions, and they're like, get this shit out of here.
I
Yeah,
need the
you're
modern
right.
thing, and they throw away all
Oh
the
yeah.
other stuff.
Yeah.
There's
I
a
wanna-
flea market up there that they have every weekend at the Coyote Moon Vineyards.
Johnstown
there's
was the
some
one
good
that we
stuff.
liked
Yeah.
up
Yeah.
in the Adirondacks. But all right. So there you go, Vertigo Nation. It sounds like we're going to be doing a podcast
Go
from the
junking.
road while we're
Wouldn't that be-
junking.
wouldn't that be
Hey,
cool if we
watch
got,
out,
like,
the
pickers.
road
We're
show?
coming for you.
That'd be funny
We
if
are the
we
new
rented
pickers.
an RV and just set up shop and took off.
Hell
That'd be
yeah,
so
we
fun.
got to do it now.
Yeah,
now
we got a camper.
we committed it
Yeah.
to record.
But it's neat that you are so educated in this.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't be able to look at anything and be like, naming it like you. Like I said, I go off of, energy. So for you to
Yeah.
be so educated in
People reach out all the time, like, "Hey, I've been trying to figure out what this is. Can
What
you
is
help
it?
me?" And
Yeah.
that's another way I'm helping people too. It's
She
like
has an
I'm-
obsession too with like history. Like if she doesn't know something about history, you give her a day and she's gonna be able to tell you everything about it because she's gonna
I know
obsess and
somebody
learn
like that,
everything
yeah.
like that.
That's
It's
wherever I
funny.
fall on the spectrum, showing up.
Yeah. It's so funny.
that reminds me of Sean.
Yeah. So on that note, I'm going to take us out, but it sounds like so many good. So I'm going to kind of go through, but so incredible the journey from that we heard from the first episode that we did with you till now, and I think like it just if you haven't listened to any of the Ashley episodes, go back, start with the first one, obviously. Usually people start at the beginning, I guess. and then yeah, we're gonna leave that there. But go back, listen to those episodes. But to just think of that journey that you've been on, and then how it, listening to how it's impacted, jobs, careers, and how careers have impacted mental, like just the whole thing, is just a testimony to strength and a willingness, I think, to get better.
Yeah, and heal myself.
And
to,
perseverance, because at
yeah.
any given point you could have been, I'm so
give up.
fucking tired.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
had it. I'll go work at Burger King. Everybody leave me the fuck alone. Trust me, I've had those days.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I think
So,
we all have.
Yeah.
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 Oh, it was like 2 days ago for me. But for you to have that perseverance to just keep driving through and mow through all of everybody's bullshit to find your passion and to keep it.
Yeah, I
You
think
know?
it's connecting back to that inner child that was hurt. I've reached back out to her, and
And you're nurturing
I
and
was
you're
what
building.
what did she like to do? Let's do it. Let's
Yeah.
make it happen.
But on
And-
like next level shit.
Yeah.
You're on some like next level shit.
yeah,
Like
she would
it's
definitely
crazy.
be proud.
Yeah. It blows my. I got goosebumps when you were talking about it. So, I think people should definitely check out your Instagram because I watch it all the time,
Yeah.
and it's so cool. It's so cool.
Well, and I love those stories because I think of these I think of them as silly health class posters that I used to see when if you're at the end of your rope, tie a knot and hang on.
Yeah, it's got, like, the picture of the boat,
yeah, like these things. But so listening to you speak, and I mean no disrespect by saying these silly healthcare, but all of a sudden these things flash forward as like yeah, like you do have to hang in there. There's reason to have hope. There's reason
Oh yeah.
to hang in there, and I think that's such an encouraging message, and I really want to make sure that I drive that home for people, because I think my son said something to me once, and it kind of blew me away because I never thought about it. And he said, you know, Dad, he said the worst thing that somebody's been through is the worst thing that they've been through, so they can only identify by that.
Right.
And so I just want to remind people that it's not a comparison. It's like whatever the struggle is, whatever it is that you're going through, like tie a knot, hang on, and
Yeah.
also don't. And I think the other message is, don't be afraid to talk about it. Don't
Yeah.
be afraid. It's scary to be vulnerable. It's hard to be vulnerable, and you are going to catch backlash at times for being vulnerable. But yet, it's also so
It's
important
strengthening.
to do that.
It's like
you
when
know?
they beat leather, it
Yeah.
strengthens the leather.
Yeah. So
true.
so incredible. And so with that, I appreciate you coming in.
Yeah, thanks
Thank
for
you for
having me.
coming
Well,
back.
I was gonna say,
Yeah,
why don't
yeah.
you plug your page real quick so
Yeah.
people can go? Because I mean,
Good point.
I obviously visually can see all the stuff you're doing, but I didn't realize how in depth it was. So
Oh, yeah.
I'm blown away, and I've already seen a lot of what you put on,
Yeah.
Instagram. So
Yeah,
I think
most
go-
of it is on Instagram, which is just Ash's Vintage, ASHES Vintage. And then I just got back into the Facebook world because I was kicked out for a little bit. So now I'm back on there slowly but surely. I think I got a couple dozen friends, but yeah, if you even just Google Ash's Vintage, it pulls it right up to the page. And if
Check
you
it
don't
out,
have
it's
Instagram,
cool.
you can still reach out to me on there, and I can reach out to you back. And yeah, hoping to do more
That's
local
awesome.
stuff.
All right.
and if you find a box in your attic and you don't know what it is,
Yeah,
Message.
send me a call.
Message. That's right. And to the Vertigo listeners, you can hold us to it. We're going to have to schedule this van ride.
Oh yeah.
I will make sure the recording equipment is in there.
The Vertigo Roadshow.
we will do the Vertigo Roadshow, and
we'll have to rent a trailer so that we can bring our goods back.
He's like, we're getting stuff that big?
yeah, I mean
See, I like the furniture pieces.
Yeah.
I like
that's true. It's
I like
true.
the old buffets.
Yeah.
They don't make that stuff anymore. The
No.
old dressers. I'm always looking at the armoires and the bigger
I
pieces.
just got a buffet record player.
Oh yeah.
That's kind of what you got from your grandfather.
I got 2 of them.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's so funny because my
I want to
grandpa,
repair them.
he was so ornery on his way out. And we used to go to his house and help him. He lived by himself after my grandma died. And he'd be like, "You're just coming here because you want my flat screen TVs." And I'm like, "Grandpa, I have 4 of those. I
The
want your
old
record
stuff.
player."
Yeah.
Yep.
And
I
I
want
have
the Sears and
I have
Roebuck
'em.
sitting over there.
Yeah.
When Sears and Roebuck was like primo,
Yeah.
right?
So I have certain eyeballs for stuff, but yeah, it's
Yeah, so if you guys have any requests for stuff you want to find, just let us know.
Yeah.
We'll do some picking for
that'd
you.
be so fun.
Well, and I'm in this thing where it's like it's like give me a rope, I'm a cowboy kind of thing. It's well no, so I go on
I
and
know.
I like find right. I'm just gonna leave it there.
Lived that
Fuck
for
it,
15 years,
right?
and I love it.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things I love about you, though.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All right, we'll leave that there. Vertigo Nation, thank you so much for listening. If you have not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button and make sure you're following the show. I promise to not disappoint, and we will keep your head spinning. Take care and love one another.